Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name's Matthew. After being on Earth for 45 years, I don't think anyone ever wants to feel like a burden to the person they love. Because when you love someone, you want to be a source of comfort, not stress. You want to be someone they lean on, not someone they tiptoe around. And when that starts to shift, you begin to feel like your presence is more of a weight than a warmth. That's how it felt with my wife. She started to pull away, and when I pressed her for answers, she looked at me and said, "I just want to be alone for a while." So I decided to give her what she asked for. But she didn't take it well. The reason for her cold attitude is something that would require me to start the story from the beginning. And I'm going to tell you exactly how things unfolded. Me and the lady that became my wife, Gina, happened to attend the same local book club. That's how we met. A quiet friendship built over worn paperbacks and long pauses between shared thoughts. We were both introverts, so our conversations were never loud or showy. In fact, in some meetings, we barely said a word to each other. But I always noticed her. She was thoughtful and introspective. We soon became close friends and eventually started dating. I won't lie, I didn't know what to expect. We were both used to being in our own heads and to solitude. There was a part of me that wondered if two people like us could really make something last. But I think that's what made us work in the beginning. There were no big promises or pressure to perform. We didn't try to change who the other was. If she needed quiet, I gave it. If I needed time to process something before speaking, she understood. And I think that's what drew me in more than anything. Over time, we learned each other's habits. We found a rhythm. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. 3 years passed like that, and after those 3 years, we figured, yeah, we could do this for the long haul. So we got married in a small ceremony with people who mattered. Looking back now, I wonder if we understood then just how much would change, not just around us, but inside us too. Just after Gina and I got married and moved in together, real life began. That's when we had to face the part nobody really prepares you for, learning how to live together in the same space every single day. Gina and I had both always been pretty private people. When we were dating, that worked well. We found peace in each other's company, even in silence. That was one of the things I really liked about her. But moving in together as husband and wife introduced a new layer to our relationship. Suddenly, that peaceful quiet had a different weight to it. Our routines didn't clash exactly, but they didn't immediately sync either. I worked as a banker, tight hours, early mornings, sometimes late nights, and a constant stream of deadlines. My day was structured from the moment I walked into the office until the moment I left. Gina, on the other hand, worked from home as a freelance editor. Her pace was slower, more flexible. She had the freedom to work in her pajamas if she wanted to, edit a manuscript while curled up on the couch, or spend an hour just sitting by the window, thinking. That difference in pace meant that even though we were both home in the evenings, we were arriving, at that time, in completely different mental states. I was drained from being around people all day. She was often still inside her head, buried in whatever story or article she had just finished editing. And yet, despite the differences, we made it work. We had to talk things through. We had to learn where to give space and where to lean in. We weren't perfect, but we were trying. One of the things that helped was that the silence between us never felt uncomfortable. And in those first few months, despite the occasional bump, I honestly believed we were finding our rhythm. 3 years into our marriage, I started noticing something I couldn't quite put my finger on at first. Gina, my wife, whom I'd always known to be a quiet, stay-at-home kind of person, began to act differently. At first, I noticed she wasn't around the house as much. She'd go out during the day and come back quieter than usual. Her phone would buzz more often. She didn't offer much when I asked about her day, just a soft "it was fine." And that was it. For a while, I told myself maybe she just needed a change of pace. But what really confused me was that the more time she spent out, the more withdrawn she became when she was home. There was no balance. It was like she needed the outside to escape something. I just didn't know what. I didn't push her. That's not how we work. Instead, I observed. I waited and gave her space to share whatever was on her mind, assuming that when she was ready, she would. But she didn't. And during this time, when I tried to bridge the gap in small ways, she'd respond with a smile, a gentle "no, I'm okay," and go back to what she was doing. At first, I took those responses at face value. But the pattern didn't break. Days turned into weeks. I started to feel like I was orbiting around her, close enough to see her, but too far to touch. I didn't want to nag her, so I held back. And the worst part? I couldn't even tell if she noticed, or if she cared. Eventually, I reached my limit. One evening, after watching her walk through the door like a ghost of herself, I knew I couldn't keep pretending like nothing was wrong. So I finally asked her what was going on. I added that she has been leaving the house all the time lately and barely talks to me. Is something wrong? She kept her eyes on the floor and said, "No, everything's fine." But I wasn't buying it. I know her. I've been with her long enough to know when she's hiding something. So I pressed again. "Look, I know you. I can tell when something's bothering you. This isn't just in my head." That's when she finally got direct. She looked at me and said, "I need to be alone for a while." For a few seconds, I tried to make sense of what she was saying. "Are you saying you want a break?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, I don't want to break up or anything. I just need space to figure out how I'm feeling. I need to do that without pressure, without having to explain everything when I don't even know what I'm thinking yet." And just like that, I stopped trying. If she didn't want me around, I wasn't going to force closeness she clearly didn't want. That moment flipped a switch inside me. What she didn't realize was that her coldness had already been dragging me down for weeks. I was already worn thin from trying to read her, trying to reach her. But now that she had finally put it into words, I made my own quiet decision. I became hands-off and distant. I stopped asking if she was okay, stopped waiting up for her, stopped wondering where she was going or who she was talking to. I let her have the space she asked for, even if it meant pulling away from the person I once considered my whole world. Days turned into weeks. A month passed. The only things we said to each other were logistical. Did the rent go through? Your package came. That was it. Just the bare minimum, like coworkers passing in a hallway. At first, she seemed okay with it. But as time moved on, something changed in her. She started hanging around the kitchen longer when I was in there, like she wanted to say something but couldn't figure out how to start. Sometimes she'd open her mouth like she was about to speak, and then stop, shake her head, and leave. I didn't know if I was supposed to jump in or just let her be. So I stayed silent. I didn't want to push again. Then, one night, we were walking past each other in the hallway, just like we'd done 100 times before. But this time, she paused and said, "You haven't asked how I've been in weeks." I stopped, looked at her, and said calmly, "You said you wanted to be alone. I'm just respecting that." She didn't argue. She just nodded, slowly, almost like she wasn't sure what she expected me to say. Then she turned and walked away without another word. A week later, after that interaction, Gina broke down. One evening, right as I was about to head to bed, she approached me again. She stood in the doorway of the guest room, looking unsure, like she didn't know whether to step inside or just leave altogether. She said, "Can we talk?" But I didn't move. I didn't respond with warmth or lean in with curiosity. I just looked at her and said, "About what?" She hesitated for a second, then said, "You haven't talked to me in weeks. It feels like you've given up." Her eyes welled up and her voice cracked, and before I could even fully process that, she burst out, "I didn't mean for you to shut me out completely." So I told her calmly but firmly, "You asked for space without telling me why. You wouldn't talk. I didn't want to push you. What else was I supposed to do?" She looked stunned, like it hadn't occurred to her that I might actually take her request at face value. Then she said something that still rings in my head. "I didn't think you'd take my words so literally." I told her flatly, "I stopped guessing a long time ago. If you wanted me close, you could have said so." From there, things unraveled quickly, as the next thing she said was, "I don't even know who you are anymore." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I was exhausted from saying things that didn't matter. It felt like I had poured effort into understanding someone who was no longer interested in being understood. Until now, when things had gotten uncomfortable for her. But she kept talking, almost trying to provoke a reaction. And finally, I asked her straight up, "Why did you push me away?" She went quiet. I asked again, "Why talk to me now after weeks of silence?" Still no answer. She just looked away, like she didn't want to deal with it. And I realized I was done asking and done pulling teeth to get honesty out of someone who once claimed to be my safe space. So I walked away. I went back into the guest room and closed the door behind me. And that was that. The cold behavior continued like nothing had happened. We still shared the same roof, still crossed paths in the hallway. There were no more attempts to talk after that for a while. I was walking past the hallway one evening when I heard her voice. She was sobbing while trying to talk. I paused because my name came up. And then another name I hadn't heard in years. Her ex. She was on the phone with someone, a close friend. I assumed. Her words came through clearly. "I don't know what's wrong with me," she said. I reconnected with him, with my ex. We didn't mean for it to go anywhere, but being around him made me question everything. I started wondering if I married the right man. I froze. There was this strange rush of cold that swept through my whole body. I had to lean against the wall to stay steady. So I pulled out my phone and started recording. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe I needed proof. She kept talking, still crying, telling her friend how being with her ex again stirred up feelings, doubts. But then she said something else. She said the more time she spent with her ex, the more it reminded her why that relationship never worked. He wanted to change her. He hadn't changed. He was still trying to mold her into someone else. That's when she realized something. "I took Matthew for granted," she said. "He never asked me to be anyone else. He never judged me. He just let me be." She went quiet for a moment. Then she said, "But now it's like he's gone. He's here, but doesn't even ask where I go anymore. He doesn't care. I don't think I can reach him." Her friend jumped in at that point, trying to offer solutions, but in that moment didn't mean a damn thing to me. Because I had heard enough. Because she had to reconnect with another man to realize what she had with me. And in doing that, she didn't just break my trust. I walked into the room, still holding my phone, though I didn't need to play it back. I just said, "I heard everything. There's no need to try and make things work. Because it won't." She looked up at me like I'd just shot a bullet through her chest. Her face went pale, and the tears came harder. She tried to talk, to explain, to backpedal. She said it didn't go anywhere. She said she cut it off. She said it made her realize she wanted me. But all I heard was that she had to lose me emotionally before she could remember why she wanted me in the first place. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. I told her, "I'm heartbroken, Gina. I can't trust you anymore." She kept pleading, kept sobbing, saying she'd learned her lesson, that she'd do anything, that she just needed a chance to fix this. But it didn't matter, because the moment she chose to emotionally step out of our marriage, she left me standing alone in it. And I had learned something too. Some wounds don't need stitches. They need distance. And that was the beginning of the end. The final days before I made my decision were heavy. Gina kept trying to talk. Every single chance she got, she'd say something. Softly. Desperately. Sometimes just my name, followed by a pause like she didn't know what else to say. Other times, she'd launch into full apologies, trying to explain, to reword the same things I'd already heard. But the thing was, I'd already heard enough. That week was probably one of the hardest in my life. She'd cry some nights. When Monday rolled around, I walked into the kitchen, and she was there, pouring herself a cup of tea. She looked up, hopeful. Like maybe today would be the day I'd say, "Let's work on this." Instead, I handed her a manila envelope containing our divorce papers. She froze, and even before she opened it, the tears came all over again. There was back and forth. Of course there was. She asked if I was sure. She begged me to go to therapy. She said she'd do anything. But the thing is, therapy can't erase what happened. It can't make me unhear that phone call. It can't undo the feeling that I was her backup plan until her ex reminded her why he didn't work out. In the end, we agreed to separate. In the weeks that followed the separation, She didn't stop trying. She suggested therapy and counseling. When I responded, I told her I couldn't pretend to fix something I no longer believed in. Because if it takes comparing me to someone else just to realize I was a good man to you, then I don't want to be in that picture anymore. I don't want to be plan B. I don't want to be someone you had to doubt first before deciding I was worthy. She cried when I said it, but I ended the call before anything else. She still tried to keep the connection alive with texts like, "Hope your day went well," or "I miss talking to you." I just stopped answering her. Let me ask you something. What would you do if you were in my shoes? If the person you gave your peace, your loyalty, your quiet presence to suddenly made space in their heart for someone else, even for just a moment, would you take them back? Would you fight? Or would you walk away like I did? Let me know in the comments. And if this story hit you somewhere deep or reminded you of a choice you've made or need to make, go ahead and like the video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes, the most painful endings are the ones that finally bring us peace.